You kept showing up, even when she stopped asking, even when her words got colder and her eyes looked past you. You held on, not because it felt right, but because letting go felt like disappearing. You thought love meant holding tighter, trying harder, proving your worth one desperate gesture at a time. But here's the truth most men never hear. If you have to prove it, it was never real. And chasing love won't make you loved. It'll just make you forget yourself. You've been told that more effort means more love, that if you give enough, prove enough, change enough, she'll come back. But deep down, you already know it doesn't work like that. This isn't about blame. It's about truth. It's about seeing through the illusion that kept you chasing and finding the strength to stand still and see clearly. In this video, you'll learn why effort doesn't create desire and how reclaiming your power begins the moment you stop trying. To be chosen, comment, "I don't chase what walked away." Number 1, effort isn't love. It's control in disguise. You kept giving not because she asked, but because you were afraid to be empty again. Tell me the truth. When she started slipping away, when her words grew colder, when her eyes stopped holding you the same, what did you do? You tried harder. You texted first. You checked in more. You apologized for things you didn't even do. You planned the weekend, booked the dinner, bought the flowers. You showed up, even when she didn't ask, not because the love was growing, but because you felt it dying, and somewhere deep down you believed that your effort would fix it, that if you just did more, she'd come back. She'd see you. She'd remember. But here's the quiet truth behind that storm inside you. It wasn't love driving you. It was fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of insignificance. Fear that you were never enough to begin with, and now you had to earn your right to stay. So you masked it as love, called it loyalty, devotion, commitment, but beneath it all, it was control. You were trying to control the outcome, trying to make her feel something that was already fading, trying to reverse the gravity of a heart that had already let go. And it's not your fault, because no one teaches men how to sit in silence when love becomes distant. No one teaches you how to hold your ground without reaching, chasing, pleading. We're taught to act, to fix, to fight for love. But real love doesn't ask you to fight yourself. See, Stoicism isn't about cold detachment. It's about dignity. It's about knowing what's within your power and what's not. And her feelings, her choices, her distance, they're not in your hands, but you are. Your integrity, your self-respect, your peace. Love is only real when it's mutual. Effort only matters when it's met with effort. And what you gave was beautiful. But what she gave back, or didn't, says everything. This doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You were trying to matter to someone who no longer held space for you. That's not shameful. It's revealing. Because when your effort became desperate, it wasn't love anymore. It was survival. Trying not to be left. Trying not to be erased. Trying to prove your worth to someone who should have seen it from the start. And if she didn't, no amount of flowers, calls, or self-sacrifice was going to make her. So here's the Stoic shift. You do not beg to be kept. You do not contort to be chosen. You do not bleed to be loved. You stand, you feel, you let go. Because effort doesn't create desire, and desire isn't love. Love doesn't need to be earned when it's real. Let that truth settle. Let it sting, and then let it free you. You were never asking her to stay. You were begging your past not to repeat itself. But it's over now, and so is the illusion. You don't have to try harder anymore. You don't have to become smaller to keep someone who never saw your fullness. What you called love was just you trying not to be left behind. Now you walk forward, not to get her back, but to get yourself back. Comment, I don't chase what walked away. Subscribe if you've given enough and you're choosing peace over performance. Number 2, she wasn't the prize. You were just empty. You didn't want her back. You just wanted the pain to stop. There's something quiet that happens after she leaves. Something beyond the noise of heartbreak, beyond the urge to a text, to fix, to explain. It's the silence you feel when no one is watching you anymore. No one to tell you you're good enough. No one to call you theirs. No one to make you feel like a man again. And in that silence, you start to panic because you thought you missed her. But what you really missed was the way she made you feel important, wanted whole. She became your mirror, the only one that reflected back a version of yourself you could live with. And when she pulled away, it wasn't just her leaving. It was your sense of identity crumbling. It was your emotional oxygen vanishing. It was every unhealed wound suddenly wide open again. And so you called it love. You said she was the one. You convinced yourself she was the prize. But brother, that wasn't love. That was dependency. That was the ache of emptiness disguised as devotion. See, you didn't need her. You needed something to fill the void inside you, and she happened to be the one who made it feel full for a while, her attention. It was a drug, and when it stopped, you didn't feel rejected. You felt abandoned, like a child left in the dark. You weren't chasing her. You were chasing the version of yourself you became when she looked at you like you mattered. That's the part no one tells you. Desire, when it comes from lack, becomes addiction, and it doesn't matter how kind she was, how beautiful, how special, how rare, because no woman, no human being can complete a man who hasn't met himself in the mirror without needing validation. You weren't in love with her. You were in love with the escape she gave you from yourself. And that's why it hurt so much when she left, because she didn't just walk away from the relationship. She walked away from the role she played in your survival story. And now you're here, raw, exposed, and maybe, for the first time, alone with yourself. And I want you to know something, that feeling of emptiness. That's not your weakness. That's the space where your real self begins. This is your work now, not to get her back, but to find the version of you that doesn't vanish when she does. To stop looking for worth in the eyes of someone else. To stand in your own presence and not flinch. The Stoics didn't seek comfort, they sought clarity. And the clearest truth you can face right now is this. You never needed her to feel whole. You just never learned how to be with your pain without needing someone to carry it. But now you do. This is where the real man begins, not when you're chosen, but when you choose yourself, even in the silence. Let go of the illusion that she was the prize. She was a moment, a mirror, a chapter in your healing. And now you write the next one, not for her, but for the man who finally sees that. His value never lived in someone else's eyes. You didn't love her. You loved the way she made your wounds feel safe. Number 3, every message you sent her after silence was a message you ignored from your own soul. How many times did you reach out, knowing she wouldn't respond? How many bridges did you try to rebuild, knowing she'd already walked away? You told yourself it was love. You told yourself it was maturity. You convinced yourself that your consistency was proof of your loyalty. But deep down, it wasn't about love. It was about fear. You were trying to prove something, not to her, but to the ache inside you, to the little boy inside the grown man who still believed that if he tried hard enough, he'd finally be chosen, finally be enough. You built bridges, but she burned them. You gave explanations, and she gave silence. You kept showing up, and she kept pulling back, and every time she did, you worked harder, as if effort could fix absence, as if trying could replace truth. But effort without return isn't noble. It's self-abandonment. And the longer you chase, the further you run from yourself. Here's the part you don't want to admit. You weren't really trying to get her back. You were trying to get yourself back. The version of you that existed when you felt loved. You were trying to outrun the silence, to overwrite the rejection, to feel like a man again, even if it meant losing yourself in the process. And you're not weak for that. You're human. You believed in love. You believed in effort. But here's the Stoic truth. Effort is for building. It's for creating, growing, lifting. It's for both people, not just you. When you give to someone who no longer receives, you're not building love. You're building a prison. Brick by brick, word by word, message by message, you trap yourself in a place where you keep proving your worth to someone who already made their decision. And every time you send another text, every time you reach out again, you abandon the part of you that's screaming to be held by you, not her. That part of you that says, please, stop chasing people who don't choose you. There's a dignity in walking away, a sacred stillness in choosing silence over scrambling. That's not bitterness, and that's boundaries. Effort is a sacred currency, but you spent it on someone who was no longer in the room. And when that happens, you have to make the choice. Do you keep giving, or do you return to the one place where your effort will always matter? Yourself. Return to your craft. Return to your breath. Return to the friends who stayed. Return to your body. Return to your mind. Return to the place inside you that knows your value was never up for debate. Let this hurt. Yes. Let it sting, but don't let it turn you into a man who begs, because begging is not love. Begging is hope turned against you. So here's your power. She didn't reply. That's her choice. You don't have to send another message to feel complete. You don't need a reply to be real. You don't need closure when you have clarity. And if there's one thing Stoicism will teach you, it's this. When the path ahead is closed, you don't knock harder. You walk a different road. The effort you use to give away, keep it. Let it build your strength. Let it rebuild your silence. Let it carve the man you forgot you were, because every message you sent her after her silence was a message you ignored from your own soul. Number 4. Attraction isn't earned, it's witnessed. She didn't stop wanting you because you lacked effort. She stopped because you lost yourself. Have you ever looked back at a version of yourself you barely recognize? The version of you that started to disappear, slowly, quietly, the moment you felt her slipping away. You stopped laughing with ease. You second-guessed every word. You changed how you dressed, how you talked, how you lived. And the worst part, you thought it was strength. You thought adapting was love. You thought that if you became the man she wanted, she'd want you again. But the more you gave up, the more she drifted. The truth is, you didn't become more attractive. You became invisible. because real attraction isn't something you earn. It's something that arises when a man stands fully in who he is, unapologetic, present, whole. Attraction can't be negotiated. It doesn't respond to effort. It doesn't respond to strategy. It doesn't show up when you beg for it. It shows up when you're rooted, when your presence feels like ground, not wind. But that's not what heartbreak teaches you. Heartbreak makes you scramble. It makes you think, maybe if I'm more of what she wants, she'll stay. So you become a shapeshifter. Less of you, more of what you think will save it. And that's when she stops feeling you, because presence can't live in a man who's constantly adjusting himself to avoid rejection. It can't grow in someone who's abandoned their own edge just to be accepted. You didn't lose her because you weren't enough. You lost her because you stopped being you. And deep down, you knew it. Every time you silenced your truth to keep the peace, every time you held back what you really felt just to stay safe, you were training her to desire a mask, not a man. That's why it fell apart, because no woman can truly desire a man who's disconnected from himself. And no man can sustain attraction if he's living in fear. Let that truth settle. Now here's the Stoic shift. Desire is not something you chase, it's something you become. By coming home to your stillness, by not bending your core for comfort, by holding your ground, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. You don't have to convince her. You don't have to perform. You don't have to edit yourself just to keep love breathing, because the moment you do, you suffocate the very thing you're trying to save. This is the paradox. The more you contort, the less she sees you. The more you disappear, the less she can feel you. And eventually the connection fades. Not because the love died, but because you did. So now the work is this. Return to your own gravity. Speak what you believe. Do what aligns. Let your silence be full, not empty. Let your presence be still, not frantic. Let her feel the man again, not the version of him who tried to please her fears. Because the man who knows his value doesn't beg for attraction. He witnesses it. He doesn't move to be loved. He moves with love, love for his path, his breath, his being. And from that place, everything changes. So no, she didn't stop wanting you because you weren't enough. She stopped because you stopped being you, and that's what you take with you now. Comment, I don't chase what forgets my presence. Subscribe if you're done performing and ready to become undeniable. Number 5, stop fixing her disinterest. Start facing it. You weren't failing. You were just forcing your story into someone else's. You felt it. Before she ever said a word, you felt it. In the pauses between her sentences, in the way her replies got shorter, in the way her eyes started drifting past you, like she was already somewhere else. You told yourself it was stress, that she was tired, busy, preoccupied. You rationalized the quiet. You excused the cold, because if you admitted what it really was, her losing interest, you'd have to face the thing you feared the most, that love might not be enough, that your love might not be enough. So you got to work. You planned more dates. You spoke softer. You asked what was wrong, over and over, trying to unlock a door that had already been closed from the inside. You tried to fix it, but here's the thing. She wasn't broken, and neither were you. The problem wasn't a crack in the foundation. It was the foundation itself. You were trying to build on sand. You thought You were being patient, but you were actually avoiding the truth. You thought you were being devoted, but you were actually denying reality. She wasn't testing you. She was leaving you, not with a loud slam of the door, but with soft absences, with fading warmth, with small silences that grew heavier each day. And you kept showing up, mistaking her distance as a challenge to overcome. You thought love was persistence, that if you held on long enough, she'd come back to life in your arms. But Stoicism teaches you something different. It teaches you that not everything is meant to be solved, that not every crack can be sealed, that some things are meant to fall apart, so you can stop pretending they were whole. It teaches you to see clearly, to remove the illusion, to trade control for acceptance, because not being chosen isn't a statement about your worth. It's a redirection toward what is for you, and that's the part most men miss. You weren't failing. You were just forcing a connection that wasn't mutual anymore. You were trying to edit the script when she had already left the stage. And that doesn't make her cruel, and it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It means you loved. It means you hoped. And now, it means you let go, because continuing to fix what no longer fits is not love. It's fear. It's fear of being alone. Fear of facing yourself without her reflection. Fear that this ending means you're broken. But endings aren't punishments. They're clarity. You don't need to decode her silence anymore. You don't need to chase meaning in her distance. You need to return to the only thing that has ever been yours to repair. Not to become better for her, not to make her regret, but to remember that your peace does not live in her approval. This is where you become powerful, not by holding on tighter, but by releasing your grip, by saying, "This is not for me," by honoring what you gave and walking away when it's no longer met. There's nothing brave about trying to revive what doesn't breathe. There's no glory in fixing someone's indifference. There's only dignity in facing it. Let her go, not because she was wrong, not because you were weak, but because this is how you reclaim yourself. Not being chosen doesn't mean you weren't worthy. It means it's time to choose you, fully, fiercely, finally. Number 6, love isn't proven. It's revealed. You tried to remind her of the love, but she had already forgotten the feeling. Tell me something. How many times did you plan the moment? The right words, the right gift, the perfect text, that one final gesture to remind her of what you had, of who you were together. You thought maybe if she could just see it again, she'd remember. Maybe if you did something big enough, she'd feel it again, and the story would shift. She'd come back, she'd say, "I didn't realize how much you loved me." But she did know, she knew all along. She just didn't feel it anymore. And love that no longer lives in the body can't be brought back with a performance. That's the wound you haven't wanted to face, that she didn't leave because she didn't know you loved her. She left because it no longer moved her. And brother, that hurts. To realize you weren't misunderstood, you were simply no longer what she wanted. So you made yourself visible in louder ways. More messages, more plans, more explanations, more chances to prove it. Because in your mind, love was something to earn, to convince her of, to remind her of. But that's not what love is. Love doesn't bloom because of grand gestures. Love doesn't reignite because you sacrificed more. Love, when it's real, doesn't have to be proven. It reveals itself in the quiet, in the steady presence, in the stillness between two people who don't need noise to feel it. You were giving everything to a ghost of a connection, trying to animate it through effort, through devotion, through pain. But what had faded wasn't asleep, it was gone. And no performance, no matter how pure, can replace what the soul no longer chooses. Here's the deeper truth. When you fight to prove love, you've already lost the connection that made it real. And this isn't your fault. It's what you were taught, that the more you do, the more love you deserve. That effort equals worth. That being chosen is something you must earn. But the Stoics didn't live that way. They didn't chase love with desperation. They stood rooted in virtue, in clarity, in self-respect. They understood what must be proven was never present to begin with, and what's real doesn't need proof. It simply is. So stop trying to win her back with demonstrations. Stop treating love like a courtroom where your devotion is on trial. Stop believing that your pain entitles you to her return. She saw your love. She just didn't choose it, and that's not a reflection of your value. It's a revelation of hers. You thought you were reminding her of the love, but she had already forgotten the feeling. Not because it wasn't deep, but because it wasn't aligned, and no gesture can substitute for resonance. So here's your shift. Stand down from the performance. Lay down your need to be understood. Withdraw the audition and return to the man who loves without needing to prove it, who gives because it's who he is, not because he's hoping to be chosen. You don't need to convince her. You don't need to impress her. You don't need to remind her. You only need to remember who you are when you're no longer begging to be seen. Because that man is not a show. He's a force. And when love comes again, real love, it won't need a reminder. It will know. And so will you. Number 7. Power returns when you stop explaining. You don't need her to understand why you loved her. You just need to understand why you stopped. Let me ask you something. How many times did you rewrite that message before you hit send? How many drafts did you burn through? How many midnight voice notes did you record, delete, then record again? You weren't just trying to talk to her. You were trying to make her see you, to make her get it, to understand the pain she left behind, the version of you she never gave a chance to meet. You thought if you explained it well enough, if you found the perfect words, she might finally feel what you felt, see what you saw, understand the weight of what she walked away from. And when she didn't, you spiraled deeper. Because it wasn't just her silence you were facing. It was the echo of your own confusion, the hollow ring of being unseen, not just left, but unheard. So you kept talking, kept writing, kept replaying the breakup like a film stuck on loop, looking for a different ending that never came. But here's what you haven't admitted yet. You weren't explaining to find peace. You were explaining to be validated, to be right, to be acknowledged, and that's where the pain multiplied. Not because she didn't respond, but because you needed her response to feel whole. You were trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you, and that's a cage you lock yourself inside. Every word you sent after her silence was a trade, a piece of your power, for the illusion of closure. But Stoicism doesn't ask you to seek closure. It asks you to seek clarity. And the clearest truth of all, you owe no explanation for outgrowing your desperation. You do not need to be understood by someone who chose to leave. You do not need to justify your love, your pain, your depth. You only need to return to the place inside you where you understand, where you see what you gave, what you endured, and why you finally stopped. That's where the real power lives. When you no longer speak to be heard, you Speak only when it's true. When you no longer need her to understand, you begin to hear yourself, and in that silence, that's where strength is born. You stop chasing closure. You stop writing essays. You stop trying to convince someone who made their decision a long time ago. And instead, you choose stillness, not as retreat, but as reclamation. You reclaim your mind, your peace, your self-respect, because when you explain yourself to someone who's already gone, you stay stuck in the moment they left. But when you accept that you're not responsible for how they interpret your love, you walk forward. You stop needing the last word, because your life becomes the final statement. And maybe that's the most powerful sentence of all. You don't need her to understand why you loved her. You just need to understand why you stopped. That's your freedom. That's your exhale. That's where the ache turns into wisdom. You never needed her validation. You needed your own permission to move on. So give it, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with calm clarity, and let her silence speak. You've already said enough. You've seen yourself at your lowest, felt the weight of wanting someone who no longer saw you. You gave what you had, and more than that, you gave what you were afraid to lose. But now you give to someone else, to you. This journey wasn't about getting her back. It was about finding the man you became when she left, the one who doesn't need closure because he found clarity. The one who doesn't chase, because he's rooted. The one who doesn't beg, because he's already enough. You stop explaining, you stop performing, you stop fighting to be chosen, and start choosing yourself. And that's the shift, from proving your love to protecting your peace, from effort to embodiment, from craving her attention to commanding your presence, because love isn't something you earn, it's something you carry. And the right person won't need to be convinced. They'll feel it. The moment you walk into the room, you are no longer who you were when she let go. You are more still, more powerful, more you. Comment, I am not who I used to be. Subscribe if you've stopped explaining and started becoming.